Hello, good afternoon to you. Welcome to the Midday News on 3FM 92.7. The bulletin is also live on all our social media platforms at 3FM 927. I am Noble Crosby Annan. Coming up this afternoon, President John Dramani Mahama assents to legal education reform bill expanding access to professional law training in the country. Also, government hospital pharmacists raise urgent alarm over critical staffing shortage, demand immediate recruitment to address their situation. We have the details in the bulletin. And Minister for Roads and Highways governs Agboja assures government will see to the completion of the Accra-Kumasi High Dualization project. We have details of these stories and a lot more coming to you shortly. Please stay with us. Welcome to the program. You can as well join us on our social media platforms at TV3, at 3FM 927, so we get interactive. Let's start the bulletin from here. President John Dramani Mahama has signed the Legal Education Reform Bill 2025 into law. Now, with the signing, it opens the door for accredited universities to offer professional law programs, a reform that campaigners and legal educators have pushed for many years, arguing that the existing system created unnecessary barriers to the legal profession. Under the new legislation, universities that meet accreditation requirement set by the relevant regulatory bodies will now be eligible to run professional legal training programs, effectively expanding capacity across the sector. Now, here is President John Dramani Mahama assenting the bill.
Regulate legal education and ensure the highest standards in terms of legal education, but also to open up the space, for more opportunity for legal education in Ghana. This particular act has been one that many aspiring lawyers have been looking up to, so it's been signed.
That's the voice of President John Dramani Mahama as he assented to the Legal Education Reform Bill. Well, the Attorney General addressed journalists after the signing, and this is what he had to say.
This morning, His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana has signed into law the Legal Education Bill 2026. As he himself said, this is a much anticipated reform bill or reform law that is supposed to radically reform legal education to create equality of opportunity for persons aspiring to be lawyers in this country. As a result of the fact that presidential assent has been given to the law, we are now ready for implementation. Immediate implementation will start with the establishment of the Council for Legal Education, which is the body that will oversee legal education in the country. We'll also start the process of accreditation of the law schools that will be running the law practice course for those who have LLBs and desire to write the bar exam. All of that will start this year. We'll be making budgetary provision for the implementation in the 2027 budget to be announced by the finance minister in November this year.
The voice of the Attorney General after President John Dramani Mahama assented to the Legal Education Reform Bill there. Now, the President also assented to the Value for Money Office Bill 2026, and that paves the way for the establishment of an independent body to scrutinize public spending, access major government contracts, and promote transparency and accountability in the procurement process. Minister for Finance Dr. Toforsen, who witnessed the signing, also had this to say.
Today is a good day. His Excellency the President this morning signed into law the Value for Money Office Act. This singular signature and assent will mean that going into the future, the Republic of Ghana, the government of Ghana will curtail public sector expenditure that has actually risen as a result of overinflation of contracts, the government contracts. What we seek to do going into the future will be that we will set up the office, and all single source procurement will have to go through the Office for Value for Money. In the past, the legal division of the Ministry of Finance has been the one that conducts Value for Money office. They did not have the requisite skills and ability to deal with Value for Money. And so what we've done is to properly institutionalize the Value for Money office. President Mahama, as part of his campaign pledge, promised to establish the Value for Money office, and today he has graciously assented to it following Parliament's passage. I want to use this opportunity to assure the people of Ghana that the menace of public sector pardon of contracts and overinflation of contracts will be curtailed by this signature. What we seek to do is to use the next 6 months to properly constitute the office, nominate the leadership of the Value for Money office, and constitute the technical team that will ensure the implementation of the Act. And so I believe that beginning 2027 January, this office will be fully implemented, and Ghanaians will see the need of a Value for Money office. I have seen Value for Money office being operated in other countries, and I can tell you for a fact that if there's one single office that can pay for itself from day one, it is the Office for Value for Money office, because it's reduced public expenditure and obviously create fiscal space that will be used to develop other sectors of the economy.
The voice of the Finance Minister, Dr. Ato Forsing there. Now, we know that President John Dramani Mahama has this morning assented to 2 bills. Let's have a conversation now, starting with the Legal Education Reform Bill, and speak with Christian Malmhesi. He is a legal practitioner and he's joining us on the phone. Counsel, thank you for joining us. Good afternoon to you. President John Dramani Mahama has assented to the Legal Education Reform Bill. My first question to you is, what major changes will this law bring to legal education in Ghana?
Good afternoon, my brother. Thanks for having me. And so if you look at now we have a new law. So I'm permitted to say, if you look at the old law, we had the Ghana School of Law, which is very tried, and then you have this internal exam, so the entrance exam. Then it is supervised, or the regulator is the General Legal Counsel. The training is largely considered theoretical, even though towards the end of it, they have a practical submission through a moot court. And then the campus location is basically Accra and Kumasi. Now, if you look at the new system, we are going to have accreditation of public and private universities to run the professional law course. We are going to have a national bar exam. And then when it comes to the regulator, it will be the Council for Legal Education. Then it's going to be practical, and be stressed on critical lawyering skills. And then there will be nationwide accreditation. Now, the point about this whole thing is that, yes, I embrace pragmatism, I embrace reform. But if the sole purpose, and just as we see from the Act, the sole purpose is, number one, to break the monopoly of the law school, I'd maintain that, and a number of lawyers or a school of thought holds the view that to decouple the Ghana School of Law is defeatist, because that's inherent in itself. It's not a solution, because the issue is about infrastructure and capacity building. Now, we have senior numbers cracking up. We have a land that we can use to build a law village and increase the capacity for students, and have a model run, where in this model, which is my parallel model, I'm saying that that slightly runs like that in South Africa, because law is a vocation, and the more the students practice it, if you look at South Africa, you write you have the faculty. After passing the faculty exams, you do your pupillage for 12 months, and then you have your first 6 months, you attend court with the mentor. Then you do a further 6 months under supervision, but this time you do small cases or what they call petty cases. Then you come and write the national bar exam. Then you do community service, and then you do your clerkship. So you see that there is a deliberate footprint of developing the students. If you come to what has been done now, the whole essence is to go and write exams. The whole essence is to write exams. The essence is to decouple or collapse Ghana School of Law and then expand, accredit faculties. I'm not against accrediting faculties, but I'm against the capacity building. My brother, we have faculties that have lecturers, some of whom have not even passed the Ghana School of Law. I don't want to mention it. We have lecturers, we have faculties where lecturers are not able to have established contact hours with the students. We have students who cry as to how they are going to pass exams, even at the faculty level. Yes, there might be one or two strong faculties in the country that are doing very well, but largely there are lots of problems at that particular level.
Yeah, but
why won't you build the capacity?
Is that not
you have a faculty that is doing sandwich. You have a faculty that is doing modulo.
Council,
you
can
have
you
a
hear me?
Faculty that is doing mainstream. And at the end of the day, the students suffer at the end.
Council, is that not where the regulation comes in? The accreditation and the regulation, is that not where it comes in?
So you had a measuring system where the regulation was a problem, and now you have a sprawling stream where you think regulation is better. It is a food for thought for all of us. A lot of people have written articles about this, that this is not a solution, and I know that about 5-10 years, we'll come back to amend this particular act. I'm writing an article about Parliament in jurisprudence, how Parliament in recent times is having to pass laws, and in a short time, it comes back to amend in order, because if Parliament are in the rule of recognition, it's supposed to cure the primary laws which are uncertain. And if we have Parliament passing laws without engaging stakeholders, without running parallel systems to look at what is happening in other jurisdictions in order to augment, I am everything for reform, but the reform must be lasting and sustaining. This, I am sorry, to have Ghana School of Law collapse is not enough. It is defeatist, and we'll come back to amend this law.
Council, I'd like to thank you so much for your time with us this afternoon. Christian Malmhesi is a lawyer sharing his thoughts with us on the latest development in terms of legal education in Ghana, as President John Dramani Mahama has signed the Legal Education Reform Bill into law. This is all the midday news on 3FM 92.7. Let's do some other stories this afternoon. And 3 people have been confirmed dead at Konongo following a road accident at Ohene Nkwanta. The dead are all male passengers, and 5 are currently in critical condition and have been transported to the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital for emergency care. The accident involved a Sprinter passenger minibus traveling from Kumasi and a Salon car also heading in the opposite direction. William Evans Inkom is joining us on phone for some more update. Evans, thank you for joining us. What more do we know about this accident?
Well, so we know that 18 people were involved in this sad situation. So both cars and the number of people who were aboard were 18. And 3, as you rightly mentioned, have unfortunately lost their lives. You also understand that the accident happened at around 7:30 a.m. we're talking about today, And one of the cars which we have identified as Sprinter was actually coming from Accra when it rammed into the a 4x4 Mitsubishi vehicle with registration number DVG 8180LA22. And let me just read to you this official statement from NADMO so we can do some level of confirmations here as far as this morning incident is concerned. So NADMO is reporting that a Mitsubishi 4x4 car with registration number DVG 8180LA22 veered off course and crashed into a Sprinter bus with registration number G6024-22 on a 3-lane stretch of the Accra-Kumasi Highway. And they also say that upon arrival, 18 victims were found to have sustained varying degrees of injury as a result of the incident. 3 persons, as we mentioned earlier, out of the 18 were found dead. And we also understand that all 3 were male passengers. The rest, we understand, are receiving prompt medical attention at a medical facility. Of course, we also understand that 5 out of the remaining who sustained various degrees of injuries sustained critical degree of injuries, and they have been rushed to the Comanche Teaching Hospital. So that is the information we have at the moment. Crosby.
I see, Evans. Thank you for the reporting. William Evans Inkum speaking to us from the Ashanti region there. To some other stories, and the Minister for Roads and Highways, Kwame Govins Abuja, has assured the public government will see to the completion of the Accra-Kumasi hydrolyzation project. And according to the minister, the project is a priority to government, just as the Accra-Kumasi Expressway. Government has come under heavy criticism over its commitment in seeing to the completion of the project started under the Aswal Kufuor administration. Addressing contractors and consultants working on the bypass for Osino, Anyinim and Konongo, the minister gave them a 2027 deadline to complete works as he directs the Ghana Highway Authority to work out the modalities for speedy payment of arrears owed to the contractors, with new agreements signed for a 1-year extension.
Government's intention, as you have heard and we have demonstrated, is not to suspend or cancel any project we inherited. And as a result, you also notice that some of you are working on other projects that are of priority to government. The biggest challenge to this project was the way it was put together, which missed major contents of the scope. And obviously, once the scope changed, the cost completely went out of the budget. And many of you couldn't find your way out whether government was still interested. I must put on record, this project stalled before 2024 elections. The original contract sum, as the chief executive said, was just under 2 billion. It appears that cost to the minimum had doubled currently. Government's intention to build a new road from Accra to Kumasi, called the Accra-Kumasi Expressway, is not a substitute to the existing Accra-Kumasi highway. It's supposed to complement that project. So nobody should be afraid of the fact that because we are doing Accra-Kumasi Expressway, it means this road is no longer a government priority. It's supposed to be complementary. So let everybody in the country be assured that the 2 projects are priorities to government. We are going to complete all of them. By our expectation, if everything goes well, we should be able to complete your outstanding works by end of 2027. I know some of you can complete ahead of schedule. All you want to know is a clarity that government considers this project a priority and that the cost to complete understanding has been discussed and you are happy with it. And we are asking the chief executive immediately to engage your consultants and yourselves from now, so that before the end of the month, we can come to a conclusion. And we now need to give an extension to all of you to cover at least 1 year within which you will be able to complete this project. But that is a very detailed contractual issues that you handle with a highway, because currently all of you, your projects are in abeyance or actually dead.
The Roads and Highways Minister Kwame Agboja governs there. Now, 28 Ghanaians, mostly young people who fell victim to a human trafficking syndicate in Côte d'Ivoire, have been rescued and repatriated back home following a joint security operation involving Ghanaian officials and Ivorian authorities. The Minister for Foreign Affairs says the operation was carried out by security operatives together with officials from Ghana's embassy in Abidjan, leading to the safe return of the victims to Ghana. The rescued persons are currently assisting investigators as authorities work to uncover the full extent of the trafficking network. And government has praised authorities in Côte d'Ivoire for what it describes as effective collaboration and intelligence sharing that made the operation successful. Officials say efforts are underway to dismantle the criminal syndicate and ensure that those behind the trafficking scheme are arrested and prosecuted. The ministry is meanwhile urging Ghanaians to remain vigilant and avoid falling prey to fraudulent travel and employment offers, particularly from unlicensed recruitment agencies. And the public is being encouraged to verify all overseas job and travel opportunities with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the Ministry of Labour, Jobs and Employment, as well as Ghana's diplomatic missions abroad. To some other stories, traditional leaders and residents of Gambia Al Hassan in the Pristina Honi Valley municipality are making an urgent appeal to stop what they call unchecked exploitation by a Chinese mining firm. They allege the company forcibly seized farmlands without compensation and without delivering a single development project in return. My colleague Irama Smith, she visited the community and she has more in this report.
Right, so Gambia Al Hassan is a farming community in the Pristina Honi Valley municipality here in the western region, and they have a population of around 2,000 people. They lament that for the past 4 years there had been a Chinese mining firm in the community which had taken over their farmlands and had not engaged in any social impact assessment or interacted with the community, has not shown any formal documentation, but just exploiting their resources and depriving them of their livelihood. They held a media engagement where they put their concerns across. Interestingly, following their complaints, the operators of the firm, about 32 Chinese, have so far been arrested and sent to Accra. All of these were disclosed during a media engagement by the youth in the community. The leader is Richmond Andokwao.
You heard Chinese company na show na omuya mining na. You may be a cost in fact, because every mining company be a cost be at least omoba one. Idea somewhere say as mushana nanum, because land no honey na nanum dia. One, to me and nanum. And another one to complement me and yet community engagement. And this one year any community engagement. How can you meet the community? Nyomoyan illegal. Into the one way money papon or the phone man say, don't want anything. We don't want them. You don't want to see this Chinese company. You don't want to see them even there. Because if you see them, there's going to be a disaster.
My colleague Irama Smith speaking there. When she was asked about interventions they are demanding from stakeholders in mining, this is what she said.
Right, so the chief of Al Hassan Gambia, that's Nana Tibu, who has expressed relief at the fact that they have been arrested, has called on the stakeholders to ensure that this is not repeated. They are calling for the protection of their community and of their livelihood. He has been speaking, and I have also interacted with some opinion leaders in the community.
We had information that they have arrested these Chinese. So it was a relief to us.
because they couldn't offer anything important to the community. So we are thankful to the government for intervening for us. Going forward, we don't want them here again. We are appealing to government to give us an investor who is well capable. Don't want this Chinese in our hand again.
The catch rabbi say China from where ye dear, normal Mamusia, and we had a ye.
My colleague Irama Smith bringing us updates from the happenings in the Prisia Huni Valley area. Let's do some other stories this afternoon as Government and Hospital Pharmacists Association is calling on the Ministry of Health to significantly increase the recruitment of pharmacists and pharmacy technicians into the public health system. The association says the current staffing gap in public health facilities is already affecting medication safety, therapeutic care, and overall patient outcomes, with many pharmacists working under intense pressure and without adequate support. Now, according to the association, the recently concluded recruitment exercise engaged only 150 pharmacy technicians, despite more than 4,000 pharmacists and 6,000 pharmacy technicians being verified and willing to accept postings. The association argues that the figures represent less than 3% of the available workforce and fall short of addressing the severe shortage of pharmaceutical professionals in the country. They are also raising concerns about the recruitment process, citing lack of transparency in the regional allocation of vacancies, persistent technical challenges on the recruitment portal, and inadequate stakeholder consultation. The group is therefore urging the Ministry of Health to substantially increase recruitment numbers in the next phase of the exercise, publicly disclose the number of personnel being employed, and involve key stakeholders in the planning and implementation of future recruitment process. Let's speak to Dr. Emmanuel Owusu-Wiafe. He is the National Chairman of Government Hospital Pharmacists Association. Doc, good afternoon to you. What are your biggest concerns beyond what we have already mentioned about the current pharmacist recruitment exercise?
Okay, so thank you very much for having me. The major concern is first and foremost that if these variation in gaps is not addressed, it will recur and then it will keep widening the pharmacist to patient ratio and compromise care. For the benefit of, of the history, we have indicated that since 2019, when the last major recruitment was done, government hasn't done anything of such. And we have, yes, indeed, acknowledged this government for at least making that effort. But if you look at the numbers and the fact that there are several of our colleagues ready and available to work, even to accept postings to the most deprived regions and districts in Ghana, we are requesting that government should indeed appreciate the numbers. And as we indicated with the data we gave, more than 4,000 pharmacists, in fact 4,200 pharmacists were verified, and 6,400 pharmacy technicians were similarly verified.
Right.
But at the end of the day, only slot for 100 pharmacists and that for 150 pharmacists, where pharmacy technicians went through. And this is woefully inadequate.
So, Doc, what immediate steps would you want the Ministry of Health to take and improve the next phase of recruitment, briefly?
One, we would want the ministry to engage us properly. We presume, because our directors were not fully abreast with how indeed the ministry came with the data even to support the recruitment. Because available vacancies declared from data available from Ghana Health Service, even the CHAP facility, indicates that there are currently vacancies for more than 3,000 pharmacy workforce.
Right.
And this is even based upon the minimum staffing norm.
Okay. And you're ready to engage with government and the ministry.
We want that collaboration to work. And then they should, the financial clearance should have adequate numbers for pharmacists and then pharmacy technicians. And then we would want there to be the public declaration of how many vacancies are being allotted for the various regions.
Thank you so much for your time with us on the program. We've been speaking to Dr. Emmanuel Owusu. We are National Chairman of Government Hospital Pharmacists Association, and in the midday news on 3FM 92.7. There's more news on our website, 3news.com. My name is Noble Crosby Annan. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, visiting IMF team expected to complete final program review on May 15. We'll bring you details. Also ahead, government's return to domestic bond market signals renewed investor confidence and economic recovery after debt restructuring. We'll hear from Presidential Advisor on Economy, Seth Tekpe. Plus, cedi slips marginally despite relatively anchored expectations. $1 equals 11 cedis 90 pesos at forex bureaus. I am Bismarck Ausa. Will bring you details of our headlines and other stories shortly. Please stay. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. A visiting team from the International Monetary Fund, IMF, is expected to conclude the final review of Ghana's Extended Credit Facility Program on Friday, May 15. This is what 3 Business has picked up from sources familiar with the engagement. The IMF mission team, led by Ruben Atuyan, has been in Ghana since April 29, 2026 for the 2-week 6th review mission. Information gathered indicates that engagements between government officials and the IMF team are progressing largely as planned and remain broadly on course. We will follow this development and bring you updates in our subsequent bulletins. Now, presidential advisor on the economy, Seth Tekpe, says Ghana's return to the domestic bond market following its debt restructuring program signals renewed investor confidence and marks an important step in the country's economic recovery. His comments come amid lingering concerns among some investors and market participants following the previous domestic debt exchange program, commonly referred to as the haircut, introduced as part of efforts to restore debt sustainability under the IMF-supported program.
At the SME Investment Forum organized by the Nkabom Collaborative in partnership with the Association of Ghana Industries and other stakeholders in Accra, Presidential Advisor on the Economy, Seth Tekpe, said Ghana's re-entry into the domestic debt market should be viewed positively despite public skepticism surrounding the restructuring process.
Well, I deem it as positive and something commendable for all of us Ghanaians. I'm not being partisan about it. That we are emerging out of the haircut, and we are emerging out of the default in particular. And we are back, government is back on the Ghana Stock Exchange.
The forum focused on improving access to finance for small and medium enterprises, particularly within Ghana's agri-food sector, amid concerns over persistent funding gaps facing businesses. Mr. Tekpe argued that although debt defaults and restructuring are often viewed negatively, several countries facing fiscal challenges have experienced similar situations over the years. He maintained that Ghana's return to the market reflects growing stability and confidence in the economy. Meanwhile, Chief Executive Officer of the Association of Ghana Industries, Seth Chuma Kwabwa, citing data from the Ghana Statistical Service, said SME contributes more than 70% of Ghana's GDP and employ over 85% of the workforce. Despite the sector's economic importance, he noted that access to credit remains a major challenge for many businesses.
AGI, we have our business barometer, which is a survey that measures the confidence level of businesses about the business environment. And consistently over the years, we ask them to cite the top 5 challenges, and you can be sure that access to finance will always be one of such challenges.
And that was a report by my colleague Michael Obodu. Now, the CD extended its mild correction over the 2-week review period, weakening across major trading pairs in both interbank and retail markets. In the interbank market, it depreciated by 1.64% against the dollar to 11 cedis 28 pesos, while losing 2.46% against the pound to 15 cedis 36 pesos. It also lost 2.15% to the euro to trade at 13 cedis 28 pesos. In the retail market, the local currency slipped 0.84% against the dollar to trade at 11 cedis 83 pesos. It also recorded marginal losses against the pound and the euro to sell at 15 cedis 80 pesos and 13 cedis 75 pesos respectively. Moving on, concerns are growing within Africa's financial sector over the risk that rapid expansion in digital lending and mobile finance could expose consumers to hidden charges, weak compliance systems, and rising debt burdens if regulation fails to keep pace with innovation. As fintech firms, digital banks and mobile money operators continue to blur the lines between lending, payments, and traditional banking services, industry players are warning that financial inclusion must not come at the expense of consumer protection.
The concerns were raised during discussions at the 3i Summit in Accra, where stakeholders examined the growing risk associated with app-based lending, embedded credit, and digitally enabled financial ecosystems. Head of Strategy and Enablement at Stanbic Bank, Darwin Mreku, says future regulatory frameworks must place customers at the center to ensure sustainable growth across the sector.
So at the heart of all this is the impact it's having on customers, and we must put customers at the forefront of all these discussions.
The panel discussion focused on balancing innovation with accountability as Africa's digital finance ecosystem expands rapidly. Mr. Mreku noted that while financial institutions and fintech firms may naturally advocate for regulations that support their business models, long-term sustainability depends on creating rules that also reflect consumer interests. He stressed that transparency in pricing and effective complaint resolution systems are essential to protecting users.
Things around transparency in pricing is critical. Things around complaints mechanisms in terms of things going wrong is very important, and it must be clear to the customer what recourse he has when anything goes amiss.
Stakeholders at the summit also called for stronger safeguards to address concerns over indebtedness and consumer trust while still enabling financial innovation across the continent.
Before we go, government successfully halted a nearly 2-month streak of fiscal underperformance on the domestic markets last Friday. In a significant turnaround for the Treasury, the auction held on May 8, 2026, saw a massive surge in investor demand, allowing government to exceed its initial borrowing target for the first time in 8 weeks. The following 3 Business News Desk report has the details.
Faced with a target of 4.349 billion cedis, government was met with an enthusiastic response from the investment community, with total bids reaching 4.830 billion cedis. Capitalizing on the high liquidity in the market, the Treasury opted to accept 6.087 billion cedis across the 91-day, 182-day and 364-day tenures, representing a significant intake above its original goal. The 91-day bill remained the primary driver of the auction, attracting offers of 5.715 billion cedis, with government accepting 4.374 billion cedis at a yield of 4.88%. The 182-day bill saw bids of 651.22 million cedis and an accepted amount of 571.64 million cedis at 7.03%. Finally, the 364-day bill drew 1.462 billion cedis in offers, with 1.141 billion cedis accepted at a yield of 10.13%. This successful outing marks a pivotal moment for fiscal managers as they look to stabilize domestic financing amidst shifting market dynamics. Subscription rate was 180.04%, oversubscription rate was 80.04%, and acceptance ratio 77.74%. The oversubscription marks a return